Guys, welcome to Warpstock 2024 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm your kind of sort of MC, Matt Naraki, so we're going to kick it off here this morning. It is 9 o'clock. Yeah, about the city of Pittsburgh. I'm actually from here originally. Don't be fooled by the t-shirt. My mom worked here, so this is kind of like my tangential connection to CMU. So I like to cosplay as, somebody who's smart, but we'll just roll with that. But yeah, so Pittsburgh is near and dear to my heart, and I feel having Warpstock here is a great opportunity too, because Pittsburgh is, a tech hub. It's actually a city of many firsts as well. In case you didn't know, KDKA Radio actually is the first commercial AM radio station in 1920, I believe. So there's that. We also had the first gas station for, like a drive-up gas station. Before that time, you used to go into a store and say, I'll have some fuel for my car, and it would just come in a canister and you take it to your car. We also had the first movie theater. It was called a Nickelodeon off Smithfield Street in, I believe, 1905. There's lots of those kinds of things here. And of course, we have a lot of tech companies out here. Meta has a regional HQ out here. Uber has a regional HQ. CMU, as I've already mentioned, they're sort of a tech incubator of sorts. You also have Pitt, Duquesne, so quite a few major universities out here. So it's just really cool to be able to sort of share that experience and be out here for Warpstock.
Penguins too.
Yes, of course, yeah. Pittsburgh Penguins, and I always think of Linux Penguins too. So real quick, we're going to go over today's schedule. So after 9, our welcome session here, we have 2 ad hoc sessions followed by a 12 o'clock lunch that will be provided by the hotel. And also Martin has a presentation on the GUI tools and techniques for ArcaOS. And then at 3 p.m., Alex Taylor has a Rex library collection presentation he will present on. And then for the last session for today at 4 o'clock, I will be presenting on OpenWatcom, the compiler and toolchain, and the IDE and all that entails. So we have a couple really fun sessions for all of you today. And yes, for those out there in the audience, hello. Hope you're enjoying yourselves, and we'd like to hear any comments or feedback you may have. Feel free to put those into the YouTube chat or into the IRC channel as well. Also, Louis, you did say that there are breaks at 10:45 for break service.
10:45 morning break. The fixins for morning break are actually back here right now.
Okay.
Lunch is at 12. That will also be in this room. And 2:45 afternoon break.
Okay.
Which will be different offerings than we have this morning.
Oh, very good. Okay. Really good. So if anyone has any questions about equipment, any issues, feel free to bring it to my attention or to Louis so we can help you guys out in case you're having issues with connecting to hotel Wi-Fi or whatever other issues you might have. We're here to help. So without further ado, yes?
I have a question. How many people are online now?
Martin.
No idea. Let me check it out. It's like 11 watching right now. 11.
Yeah, it's the old usual cast of characters. People couldn't make it, or we have new faces. Can you tell?
No, I cannot tell. No. From IRC we have like 9 people in IRC, 11 watching the stream. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and some of those could be, those 9 could be the same people
9
watching,
can
right?
be the same.
Right.
Interesting if they weren't.
Would they be following along, right? But yeah, no, that's all I had to kick this off. So does anyone have any questions regarding Warpstock Pittsburgh? Any initial ones before we get started?
Just as a general thing about Pittsburgh, I The little thing I was able to research, Pittsburgh has a lot of museums, the Carnegie museums that are very, very beautiful, and the Andy Warhol Museum is also here.
Yep.
There is also very interesting, and you have like the incline.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know the incline? Can
Yeah.
you
Oh,
tell
yeah,
me more
yeah.
about it?
Definitely. Yes. Yes. The incline was built turn of the last century. It was mostly to help workers who worked in the steel mills and whatnot to be able to transit from the bottom up to the top of the hill, which is Mount Washington. And of course, it then ended up converting into a historical landmark, and it's used as a tourist attraction to get people to, get inside the cab and take photos as they go up or down the transit. So it's a really cool experience. If you do have a chance to check that out or any part of the city while you're out here, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. So, and yes, the museums are really fun too.
Yeah, museums are also.
I've been to the Andy Warhol Museum, I think, twice. So
I saw something like botanical garden nearby.
yeah, I think I think it's the conservatory, I believe is what it's called. Yeah. So yeah, and then there's the Carnegie Science Center. That's actually a lot of fun. More for kids, but there's all kinds of cool experiments they're always up to. So.
Are there any actual social, organized social events, or do we ad hoc it?
I think for the after we have our proper sessions, I think we were planning to just kind of maybe go to dinner somewhere, and then we could I could be happy to do a grand tour, take some people around. So I think that could be a fun opportunity.
Matt, you want to talk a little bit about Warpstock, the organization, and that it's a 501c3, and we accept donations?
Yes, of course. Yes. So yes, Warpstock Corporation has been around for quite a number of years, and yes, it is a 501c3. So for events like this and many others, and for support for the OS2 community at large, they are looking for donations. Any, of course, are appreciated, and because it's a 501c3, it is tax deductible. So for those in the audience that are curious about that, you can go to warpstock.org.
Warpstock.org.
Yeah, warpstock.org.
And this year's Warpstock is dedicated to Chuck McInnes.
Right. So he passed away last year, right? Chuck McInnes.
Chuck passed away, was it last year or was it this year?
I don't remember.
I think it was this year.
I think it was this year.
I think we missed him at the meeting last year.
Yeah, I think it was this year. Let me just check my.
It was May, right, May. At least that's when I saw it.
Yeah, in May.
Oh.
May 18. Guillaume Gay wrote to me to tell me.
All right.
Yeah, at 87. Yeah.
Yeah.
87. Yeah.
I have a request.
Yes.
For the High Command with Warpstock. I used to have a link I could use with maybe Amazon somehow, and there would be a
Yes.
payola, but I don't have that link anymore.
Right. Amazon did away with our
Affiliate link or?
affiliate link,
Okay.
and Amazon retired the Amazon Smile donations. You can specify Warpstock if you're doing a PayPal, not a PayPal, but an eBay purchase. And that's, I think, right now the only way that you can automatically give something to us.
Can you document that to us?
I'll add something on the website about
Okay,
that.
sure, thank you.
The website is also undergoing a major overhaul.
Oh, very nice. What's the expected ETA on that, do you think? Or
David, what's the expected ETA on that?
A few months.
We'll have an SSL cert.
By next year, hopefully.
I mean,
Which is what I say every year.
I've been working on getting a newer version of Geeklog, which is the platform that it uses to, I got the current 1.4 version to run with a more modern Apache and PHP. I've been waiting to get the content to download. So, and then I'm going to try to run upgrades on it. It's like 22 years old, I think, that version, so.
It's pretty
Creaky.
dated, yeah.
Can we maybe reduce the
Clutter?
clutter, a bit on the
That's
site?
the plan.
Yeah, it is almost impossible to find anything I want to look for when I go there.
What's interesting is that when Robert and I implemented that, it was a vast improvement over, I think we were using Plesk before that, or Plone. No, actually we'd gone from Plone to a static HTML, which was impossible to maintain. But it was less cluttered than what those layouts looked like. But by today's standards, it's really,
It's got a sort of retro chic to it.
yeah.
It's like if Web 2.0 didn't happen, type of thing.
Exactly. But it's coming.
There is a question on the chat by GTA. I think it's John Van Wyck.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think. Why Warpstock was moved to September this year? It caught me by surprise a bit. Couldn't get a presentation ready in time. Will there be a standard date slot, or is depending on hotel locations and such?
It's usually been in the fall, in my recollection. Last year was unusually late.
Oh, December? Yeah.
Well, I should probably walk up front with that. Otherwise, I'm just a disembodied voice. I have 2 mics, so you can keep this mic.
Oh, wonderful.
And I can turn this mic.
Okay.
And then we can.
Now you're going to sing.
And then you say.
Hello. Okay. So, why is Warpstock now this early in the season versus later in the season? There were a number of reasons. Hotel availability was one. We didn't want to be in. We didn't want to run into the cooler weather in the later fall, so we thought earlier fall would have been a little bit nicer for everyone. And we have Jewish holidays got shuffled around because the Hebrew calendar has a leap month in it, and so all the Jewish holidays are now pushed into October. So it makes the entire calendar of availability for some of us difficult this year. We haven't yet set dates for next year, have we?
Well, I tentatively did one in like the second week of October with the place in Little Rock, but that's as far as it goes.
Okay, so we're not set on it.
I didn't send him any money.
That's true. So next year's event, we're supposed to be in Little Rock, Arkansas. We'll see what we do about adjusting the date, but the feedback has generally been that apparently September's too early. People want it later, so we'll shoot to do a little bit later, October or November, I guess.
You want to run into Canadian Thanksgiving, so
There's always Canadian Thanksgiving we have to watch out for. So we have an interesting set of calendar landmines to navigate. John?
Tell me how you chose this hotel.
Matt?
I helped with this. I assessed different hotels in the area in terms of the amenities and in terms of the room comfort. I know that the Marriott, this particular Marriott, just had a renovation within the past couple months, and to good effect, because I think I haven't slept as good as I've ever had at a hotel in a long time. So based upon those metrics, I felt like this was the one to go for, even if it might have been slightly more in terms of admission cost and whatnot. But I think when it comes to comfort and having an experience that's worthwhile, I felt like this was the one to go for. So after some deliberation with you know, the directors and whatnot, we decided to go for this.
It is a really nice hotel, even
So-
if I do wish I could use my mouse on my room's desk.
Yeah, so it's very satisfactory. The amenities in the room are excellent. There are a few little things that don't work. I'm gonna tell them, one of the sockets doesn't work, things like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I found the USB sockets don't work.
They work for me though. So,
Really?
yeah, my room.
None of them in my room work.
Are they tied to a switch that's hidden somewhere on the wall?
I don't think so, because the 110 outlet right next to it is working fine. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, they need
My
some
phone
feedback
charges,
on
so I guess
something.
mine
If they
works.
just did a renovation.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
normal,
Yeah,
just like the
That-
software
but for
business.
everyone who didn't make the trip this year to join us live, you really did miss out on a nice hotel.
yes.
And it had a very nice breakfast, a very expensive breakfast, but a very nice breakfast
Yeah.
here.
You should
I took my,
just point your camera down the hallway, see what we walk up to.
And there's plenty of food for everyone. We had food and beverage minimums this year, which is something we haven't had to deal with in a long time. And not only do we have a minimum dollar amount, but some of the packages were a minimum person amount. So we have more than enough food for us.
So go high, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. If there's stuff left over, please take it back to your room at the,
so
at
is
the
it,
end of the
there's
session.
lunch and,
There's morning break at 10:45, lunch at noon in this room, and an afternoon break at 2:45. When I say an afternoon break, obviously we have breaks between all the sessions, but the food will come in and be available for them. So actually our morning break food's already available in the back. And we have cold brew coffee back there too.
Sorry, JTA is JT Agnello from last year, and
Jan is JVW.
sorry,
Jan is JVW.
yeah, John is JTW.
He's the guy who did the VM presentation.
Yeah, and yeah, he was the one with the question, and he said that he has proposed a dual convention for USA with West Coast and East Coast at the same time. We're doing something like with Neil like this year, right? Like having tomorrow.
Well, Neil will be presenting remotely from the
Okay.
West Coast,
Okay.
but we've talked for a number of years about running simultaneous Warpstocks on two different coasts, or running multiple Warpstocks a year. The problem really comes down to, particularly these days, the number of people who really want to come to live events. Most of the tech events have trimmed down and they've become virtual or pretty small live audiences like ours. So, as I was saying this morning, I kind of view this year's Warpstock as a broadcast with a live audience. But
no laugh track.
no laugh track, no laugh track. But we could look at doing a whole bunch of different things. I mean, simultaneous sessions and on both coasts, you know, in two different physical venues. It's a bit expensive, but if we could get a group together on each coast that way, sure. The thing is, the way air travel is priced out, sometimes it's cheaper to fly from one coast to the other than it is to fly only halfway across the country.
Yeah, because the place in the middle of the country's half convenient for everyone.
Yeah, and we've tried that, we've done that before, which is why we were in
Wichita.
Wichita. Yeah. Yeah.
What a fateful meeting that was. That's where you announced Blue Line, right?
Wichita.
Yeah, I guess it was. I guess it was when we announced Blue Lion. Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, that's about right.
Which year was Wichita? Just trying to remember.
2015.
2015. Oh, okay. 9
Yeah, that
years
was
ago.
a nice
Okay.
place, Wichita, actually.
Yeah, Wichita was beautiful.
Who would have thought?
Beautiful, and the weather was great, and everything.
Had a Frank Lloyd Wright house.
Yeah, it had a Frank Lloyd Wright house. David and I have an ongoing thing where wherever we are, we always try to find a Frank Lloyd Wright.
Which actually, there is a Frank Lloyd Wright house in Pittsburgh, so we'll have to look up the exact location, but it's not too far.
And there's Falling Water and Kentucky Knob. Kentucky Knob.
Kentucky Knob, yeah, those are also, but they're a little drive from here.
A little, yeah. Not as long as you drove yesterday.
Not as long as I drove yesterday, no. And you don't have to go over you don't have to traverse the Cross Bronx Expressway to get there.
Or the Horseshoe Curve.
Or the Horseshoe Curve.
You came from New York on this trip?
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at driving, but it's a long drive. Face it.
Once a year I go to Cleveland Clinic to see my cardiologist. So I drive from either from the island or from Leesburg to Cleveland and back. It's not any farther than any of those drives. And this year I took my '63 Pontiac to the Pontiac Oakland Club convention in Springdale, Arkansas. And that was 1,200 miles from Leesburg. So I drove from New York to Leesburg to Springdale in my '63 convertible.
How's
No air
How's the
conditioning.
gas mileage?
She gets about 18 on the highway. But in 1963, the school of thought was that convertibles didn't need air conditioning. You could just put the top down. But when you're on a long drive, you don't put the top down.
Both cars did have air conditioning.
Particularly when the sun is beating on you. And I mean, it was hot on that drive. I stopped for gas. It was so hot that the vinyl top was actually bowed in between the bows, holding it. I mean, it sagged in between the bows. So it was a really, really hot drive. So that was a long trip. This was not a long trip. Getting off of Long Island is always a long trip, no matter which way I go. But I took the northern route off, which brought me across the Cross Bronx, which is the worst 4-mile stretch of road known to man. It's just terrible, just terrible. Anyway,
Obviously never driven in Toronto.
I have once. It was
I've driven in
tedious.
Toronto.
Yeah. That 18-lane stretch right next to Pearson Airport is the busiest highway in the world.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow. I always thought that we had the busiest highways in New York. But that 4-mile stretch on the Cross Bronx was just never meant to bear the traffic that it bears these days. It's just absolutely terrible. And I've been there at 4 o'clock in the morning and it's still been backed up. Just unbelievable. More opening announcements do we have? So we have a couple ad hoc sessions that are listed. And really what those are is we have nothing specifically prepared in the way of presentations, but we can kibitz and we can do question and answer and stuff like that.
I didn't bring my D&D stuff, sorry.
What's the story with the Wi-Fi in the hotel? Like, after a while last night, I got my little router thing to connect to it.
Mm-hmm.
What about in here? Is there no Wi-Fi in here?
There's no hotel Wi-Fi in this room other than the one connection that we have from Martin.
Okay.
We can add another connection.
I have the underscore guest network here.
Yeah, it seems like it's working for me too.
Is it working
It's
for
full
you?
signal. It's like all
Yep.
wireless.
Yeah, I got my phone on.
Yeah, you can't use apparently the underscore conference one, but the underscore guests.
Mhm.
work.
Underscore guest.
For your room.
He's working.
Okay.
It's the same
I'm
as-
tethered to my phone, so
Yeah,
and
that's
anyone
all.
else who wants to use it is welcome to do that. And I get a full 5G pump in here, so
Verizon?
AT&T.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not complaining about that. It was a little unexpected that conference Wi-Fi was going to cost us per connection per day. It's sort of a throwback to a bygone era. But and I was wondering whether we'd be able to get the guest Wi-Fi in here. But I didn't really have it in me to ask and say, well, could we do away with the per device connection fee and just use the guest Wi-Fi in there?
And once your little router is connected to that, you can plug multiple things into it, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It'll just proxy the connection,
Yeah.
route the connection to, not proxy, sorry.
Is this a thing in hotels? If you're running a conference, you're not supposed to use the guest Wi-Fi connection?
They will charge you for everything they possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, at a hotel and conference center, that's their bread and butter is, I mean, the AV cost, Warpstock purchased this screen and this amplifier. The cost of renting this screen for this room and the amplifier would have paid for these two things, including the microphones, several times over.
So you just lug them around to the meetings?
Yeah, well, this year we've as I say, we've added the screen and the little karaoke box because the cost of just renting a microphone to connect in the room is expensive. The cost of bringing your own microphone and renting the connection to the room is expensive. But that's how they make their money. I mean, you know, I can't fault them for that. As long as they allow us to bring in our own stuff, I have no complaints.
And every place will allow you to do that, or not every place?
Every place that we've gone has allowed us to do that. That's when we started, when we got our first projector, was back in, I don't know, 06, I guess, when Warpstock Corporation was formed. We bought our own projector because the cost of renting a projector was insane.
What's with the tables? Are there gonna be another row or?
These are all that we need.
Okay. Nice to spread out.
Exactly. And we could get the hotel to supply us with extension cords, but there's a fee for that.
I brought my
Per
own
foot or what?
So we,
extension cord.
it feels like it. So we brought cords. I got these cords I think last year or the year before. No, I think I got these last year.
Yeah, we had a bit of a cord deficit last year.
We did. Yeah. So I threw the bag in the car and brought it with me. The one nice thing about going someplace where I can drive is I can just load up my trunk. When I have to get on the airport, you know, juggling a whole bunch of cases and things, that's like no fun. Well, of course, Jeff, you're used to doing that. You travel with like a whole trunk. You're like Thurston Howell.
So one time when I went to United, I can take 3 70-pound bags. I filled up 3 70-pound bags with computers about 10, 15 years ago, I remember. I only brought one bag this time, but they put it on for me free on some Delta something or other.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And something from United, I got something. I'm on the 10th floor in this hotel now. They said, oh, you get some perquisite from,
Cause you're a
Really?
Marriott member?
you know, something, I don't know.
Well,
They
so
just
you
send me
get
these
free
things.
Wi-Fi if you're, I think if you're, it's a little unclear on the. But,
You get free Wi-Fi anyway. I think you get better free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, there's a
I never saw
second
this
tier of
before.
it, yeah.
There's an enhanced tier, $10 a day, I think.
Yeah.
That's what our one connection in this room is. It's $10 a
I
day.
flew 2 million miles on United, and so then these things start coming.
Well, the least they can do is give you upgraded Wi-Fi. I agree.
And I got free bags, so that was nice.
Maybe free drinks to go with that, too.
That's what you need. So let's see. We've been through the programming notes, and we've been through the dedication for this year to our good friend Chuck McInnes. Is there anything else we need to cover? I don't think so. Does anyone else have any questions about Jeff?
So I have an agenda, which we might put at some point. I'll leave it to the discretion of the powers who are running the conference, but I was, for 2 years, I've been trying to put together an RSync presentation.
Okay.
There are numerous obstacles, including a heart attack along the way. So now I have the beautiful,
That can definitely be an obstacle.
you know, but I'm okay now. And
We're all
so
glad
I was
to-
hoping to do something this year, but then just lots of problems. So I brought the equipment with me, and
Okay.
what I'd like to do, and I think looking forward to next year,
Mm-hmm.
is I'm uneasy having my data in the cloud for many reasons. Like when something goes wrong,
As are many of
call, and it gets stolen, or it gets stole.
Sure.
And so I'm setting up a system, which I have partly implemented now, for my own network attached storage in multiple locations.
Mhm.
It'll be chained from Boston to Cape Cod to Bangkok.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about RSync, and because their implementation storage
Sure.
platform. So I was gonna do a presentation, which I hope to do next year, on how you make RSync work for a private network, redundant network storage system on
Okay.
any operating system.
Okay.
OS2, Linux,
Yeah,
Windows,
that's a good one.
whatever. And so I've got bits and pieces now. And so I brought the hardware, and I hope at some point, if you're interested, we can kind of work on that, here, and the people who are online.
Sure.
We'll talk about the problem. But the first problem was, the network attached storage works wonderful. Somebody gave me a wonderful Windows 10 computer with a broken keyboard, so I have an external, it's an Acer, so I put a solid state drive in, it's just wonderful, it's very fast.
The only problem is it runs that operating system from Redmond, Washington.
So that's a problem.
And all of your data, of course, gets funneled to Redmond on a regular basis to keep them apprised of what you're doing.
So let's talk about that, because eventually I want to move it over to an OS2 cloud. I got lots of computers now.
Okay.
And for network attached storage, you don't need anything super whiz bang.
True.
So, because it's just, the things are just running in the background all the time. Everybody's got a lot of these boxes lying around. So I brought but the first problem that happened is I got it working wonderfully, sort of temporarily. I just have a batch file, and it uses Xcopy, and just copies everything to map drive letters on the network attached storage. And it works wonderfully.
Okay.
At the end of every day, I just hit the batch file, it backs up everything, sort of on the road to getting the RSync system working, which also doesn't work. I emailed you about that.
Yeah, you did.
But I mean, they're all simple
Didn't
things.
you email me while I was in the throes of a tax
Yeah,
deadline?
you were doing some taxing.
Yeah.
So I'll show you. But the first thing is when I get here and I try to access over the VPN, the map drives don't work anymore. So I don't know why, but that's some simple little thing which somebody will know, and we'll get that fixed. And then I got for $50 at the MIT swap meet, I got a W530 machine, which is sitting here in the bag, and it's got a special 170 watt adapter, and it'll do everything in the world. And so I cloned my Windows 7 thing, and I want to put the ArcaOS on it, and that'll become my production machine. And we'll just document all that, and eventually all this stuff will be set up, so no matter what kind of operating system anybody is working, they can have their own network attached storage.
Can you get to it remotely?
That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, right, so
From
that's
here,
the
I
problem,
mean.
right over the VPN.
Well, the mapped drive letters.
Yeah.
But
Don't
a
worry.
firewall in between can,
There's no.
really
when
ruin
I
your
fix the
day.
L2TP VPN, there's no firewall, I'm on the LAN. Once I turn on the computer and I link to my LAN.
there's a firewall in the hotel. Trust me, you're going through a firewall when you link it to your LAN. If you're using the hotel Wi-Fi and you're going through, there's a firewall. It may not be a tight firewall,
Okay,
but you're
so-
going to have to traverse that in order to get your map drive letters to work, and it may not allow you to traverse that with that protocol.
How can they do that? That happened when I was in Quito. I went to his country accidentally last week. From the airport, I tried to access
Whoops.
and it wouldn't work. That's right.
I
From
thought
the
it was in
Quito
Chicago.
Now you know how he racked up 10 million miles on that Delta.
Why is everyone speaking Spanish? That's,
Okay, so that's all. I brought a T-Mobile SIM card with me. We'll just fire it up and see if it works directly.
Sure.
But how do you defeat
The ones I had.
their firewall?
Well,
That's the whole point of a VPN.
you may be able to use S-tunnel on both ends of the connection, and then you can actually bump your connection through a different port
I'll give you
and
time.
essentially proxy your
Okay, so these are all the things I want to go through over the next year to make everything work out of the box. because it's just one damn thing after another to get, well, you all know, you're involved in programming, just
Sure,
things constantly go wrong.
sure, sure.
I can access my home network through my VPN right now, but.
Are you able to get,
I haven't managed to do it from my ArcaOS VM yet, but I think that's probably because I have the VM bridging set up on the physical Ethernet,
Yeah,
not the Wi-Fi.
so
I have to
But I
switch
will
that
tell
over,
you,
but-
I can access my router
Never work.
on the VPN.
No.
I had
The
3.1,
laptop I have is the-
but I can't access
supported by
the
Windows.
Acer PC at 3.71. It won't respond to ping.
To a LAN router.
But it works. I had my wife go down to the basement last night and check it at 11 p.m. It's completely working. So somebody here will have a
I need to
smartphone
think about
to
it.
diagnose that.
I need to think about that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we'll just set it up and you can see
I
it.
can see it, just have to see why ArcaOS.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for,
So we have a little break here now?
well, we have a long break, we have Q&A, we have problem solving, we can, maybe, you know, in the next hour, we could bring about world peace, you never know.
The world runs on OS 2 and everything just works, right?
Yeah, see, wouldn't it be a different place if that were true?
Yeah,
Nothing crashes.
Nothing crashes.
yeah. We could start in Gaza, we could start in the United States, we could start in the Ukraine.
Exactly. Exactly.
Lots of opportunities for the peace people.
But,
Ukraine running their missile systems on OS 2, it improves reliability.
but that's, I think we've covered everything. We have sessions today, we have sessions tomorrow, we have a half day on Sunday. And then after our half day of sessions on Sunday, we do have the room for the rest of the day, so we can have our typical after Warpstock activities, where we get together and hack on stuff and what have you. So we have the room for the whole day. They don't, when you rent a meeting room at a hotel, they don't apportion it. So if you say, oh, I only need it for half a day, well, that's fine, you pay for a whole day, and then they lock you out after half the day. So I said, no, we need it for the whole day. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I ran into a thing where in Little Rock at one hotel where they had to rent it in the evening to somebody, so you couldn't actually have the room the entire day.
Yeah. Isn't that nice?
Yeah,
That would definitely not work well for us.
no.
No.
I didn't ask when is the checkout time here?
Oh, so that's 12 noon to check out your room.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have to book a vehicle, the van, goes every half hour. So my flight's at 5, so I booked it at 3.
Oh, the airport shuttle.
The airport shuttle.
You need to book that in
You need
advance.
to book that,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
I think mine's about the same time.
Good.
I'm
Martin,
driving to the
anything?
airport on Monday morning if anybody needs a ride.
I'll always be back at the office on Monday mornings, but thanks for the offer. My flight's on
I
Sunday.
can't drive that far.
Anything
It's actually
online?
within driving distance. I could have driven down, but
Oh, from
it was
Toronto?
it was after work, and I would have had to fight the border traffic at the Niagara crossing, because that's when all the trucks start coming out at night.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I got some points on Aeroplan. It's not too expensive. It's an hour flight, but no. Why not?
Fun fact, the Canadian Embassy hosts events in Pittsburgh sometimes.
Cool. Anything this weekend?
Martin, what
I
do
don't
you
know.
We can talk about the board, the Warpstock board, and our members, or
We could talk about the Warpstock board and the members of the Warpstock board.
it's David, it's not.
Okay, so the members of the Warpstock board, members who are not here with us at this event, John Edwards is our president, Andy Willis is our vice president, Neil Waldauer is our secretary, I'm the treasurer, Louis Rosenthal,
Well, we got a quorum then.
and what's that?
We got quorum then.
Exactly, we have a quorum, we're all set. And David and Matt are directors at large, as is Martin.
There's four. I
So
mean,
we have a larger Warpstock board now than we've had in some time. We have a full complement, as it were.
Are we planning any momentous decisions?
You never know.
Hostile takeover of IBM.
Hey, if anyone's bringing the ThinkPad brand back to IBM.
Yeah, see, now that would be something, wouldn't it? That would be something. But we're definitely appreciative of the new energy that a couple new people have brought into the group. After a time, you get tired. And I'm busy with a bunch of other things now. And I said last year that I just can't do all the work for a Warpstock event that I did the last few of them. I mean, I was just running ragged with that. And particularly this event falling in the middle of another tax deadline, because I've got an October 15 tax deadline in the office. And my brother's looking at me like I got 3 heads. And he says, I can't believe that you're working on a Warpstock thing after you've taken off so much time to show the car around the country, and now you're doing this. I said, yeah, I know. I didn't think about it.
Is that a consideration for next year? Like it maybe should be after that? Or?
If it, for me personally, if it were after October 15, well after October 15, I mean,
But
I say to clients, you'll need to talk to me after October 15th, so the phone rings on the 16th. After I'm still picking myself up off the floor. But yeah, if it's later in October, that's actually better for me. Payroll taxes used to be a big concern. They're due the end of October, but we don't do payroll in-house anymore for anyone. That's all farmed out to payroll services. So that's eased that burden considerably. So yeah, having new people on the board of directors has been a real godsend to us.
Like in this case, did Matt's preliminary work ease your burden considerably?
Huge, absolutely.
You just
And
had
your work on the website, you know how many years I've been trying to do that? Every year I say, this is the last year I'm going to put up with this ancient website, and every year something else comes up and I get diverted. So I'm thankful to have the two of you on the
Well,
board.
we'll see when I try that first upgrade to 1.8.
Okay. JT is telling on the chat is can the Warpstock board have some representative members versus being a board director, like a representative member to help to represent Warpstock in a geographic area, so they can attend local OS2 clubs, groups, gather ideas, information, and funnels everything to the board.
We don't have a provision for that in our bylaws now, but I will make sure that we add that to an upcoming meeting agenda, and we have a vote on that and see. I think that's a great idea.
Are there any local OS2 groups?
Any local OS2 groups
Yeah,
left? Well, Neil's Bay Warp.
Okay. And like New York, that stopped happening.
It did stop happening. I tried to rekindle that, but publicizing it in the right place was always problematic. Now it might not be as problematic as it once was. It would be nice to see if we could get people together in New York.
So what kind of profile do we have in the world, aside from Warpstock.org, which is problematic?
Well, Warpstock.org itself is not problematic. What's problematic is getting a new user group off the ground, because where do you tell people that you're getting a new user group off the ground and the first meeting is going to be here?
Right, so what do we have any public profile? OS2, the heritage of OS2, is there any, so like for example, I have 2 antique ovens from Chambers, the famous brand. Was bought by their competitor and shut down because it was so good. But there are several user groups of people who own these stoves. There's a Facebook group, and then there's a chambers.org group somebody set up. Thousands of people go to these places. They need parts, they need
Many
help.
groups use Facebook. I don't use Facebook at all. I have no Facebook profile. I have no presence in social media. because I am philosophically opposed to social media.
I'm with you on that, I don't either. But my wife, nobody in our family has it, but we all go to the Facebook page for Chambers when something goes wrong with the stove. So I'm just saying, do we have any kind of public presence?
Well,
The answer is no, that's an issue.
I mean, certainly OS2 World is very popular.
There are several OS2 groups on Facebook as well.
There are.
There's one called OS2 eComStation ArcaOS, and there's another one I think called OS2 ArcaOS and eComStation.
They're not the same, but they might be.
There seems to be a fair bit of overlap in membership, but they're not the same group.
So, I mean, that's certainly a possibility. Of course, if you're getting together a local user group, it all depends upon whether there are local users in any of those online forums. I wouldn't really know. But it would be nice to have some local user groups, and I would love to have, I mean, the thought that JT just brought up about having someone empowered to work as a Warpstock ambassador at one or more of these groups would be terrific. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, talking about groups, I think there's like a different kind of group that we need like to come together. There is the retro computer group, and there are a lot of people that collects old computers, run OS2, wants to do something with that, but sometimes like we have a conflict. No, we are the modern OS2 group in modern hardware.
And dividing line
yeah.
between OS2 Warp,
Yeah.
and ArcaOS. ArcaOS is not targeted to running on vintage machines. That's not our focus. So although there are people who enjoy running OS2 on vintage PS2 hardware, and there's nothing wrong with that. Remember, Warpstock donated a bunch of PS2 machines to the museum in New Jersey a number of years ago, and I had a Model 50 that I was playing with, just sort of on the side every now and again. That was a lot of fun, but that's not modern OS2. And the danger of constantly associating OS2 in the general sense with retro computing is that people then tend to think, well, ArcaOS is for old computers. And ArcaOS is definitely not for old computers. In fact, when we first designed ArcaOS, we ripped out a whole bunch of old stuff. ISA drivers, the only ISA drivers that are left in the distribution are
Sound cards.
there may be a couple LAN drivers that are still ISA in there, but they're more effort to extract than to just leave alone and not discuss.
We pulled out most of the MCA and token ring drivers.
Yeah, MCA, Token Ring, ISA cards came out. I mean, it's just not our focus.
They're still on the media somewhere, but they're just not in part of what.
Exactly. It would have been more trouble for us to try to remove them and then adjust the IBM installer to accept the fact that they weren't there and not complain. The IBM installer does some interesting things.
You still install.
The IBM installer is about 10 different programs.
Yeah.
And each one is configured its own way and has its own.
That's ArcaOS is one of their major innovations is the installer is not this long, like janky process.
Well, thankfully,
it doesn't look like a
the interesting thing is the ArcaOS installer does a very good job of wrapping itself around the IBM installer so that the user is not generally aware of when the IBM installer is installing stuff and when our modern installation scripts are running to install our content on top of it. But the base OS2 operating system is all handled by the IBM installer. So whenever we have a change to something in there, odd things can happen in beta testing. And it's like, what's that message? And then trying to find out where that message gets logged, because you would not believe the 101 nooks and crannies that IBM decided would be a good place to put that log file.
Oh yes, feature installer. So anything that gets installed in feature installer, it has its own log file. So the installer has a message log file, which you can specify on the install line. It has a debug log file as well, which you can also specify on the line. There are a lot of log messages that actually don't go to either. They go to this hidden feature installer log, which is buried somewhere in the OS2 directory. It took us a while to discover that.
I mean, just amazing. And we discover new stuff about the IBM installer every day. It's just an incredible thing. So, the best practice is leave it alone. So we try to just leave that stuff alone, but we don't expose it to the user when we're doing the ArcaOS installation.
So when you removed all those things, did that make it choke sometimes, and how did you deal with that? Like the old drivers, did it?
Well, we found out, I mean, we removed them from selections like you know, what on the hardware selection page, right? There are a bunch of sound cards that are there to select. The ISA cards aren't in the list anywhere. The drivers may still be on the disk. So if the IBM installer, because the IBM installer does some weird things, sometimes it will sort of inventory what's available to install, and if something's not there, even if it's not selected, it barfs. It just says, oh, that file's missing. So we didn't want to disturb that. So we just don't give you the choice to select an ISA sound card. And the installer is none the wiser, because it's not passed off to the installer to install.
With multimedia, that's definitely the case. You have to kind of go into the config files, dummy some stuff out. With the network drivers, it's actually a better story, because the network stuff is really designed to have companies be able to do SID installs and provide their own collection of drivers. So basically, there's a directory on the install medium which contains all the NIC drivers, and if you add some, they'll get picked up, and if you remove them, ideally they won't get picked up. But there's always little gotchas and stuff like this.
Remember, IBM farmed so much of that development out to different third parties. That's why the IBM installer itself is a patchwork of different approaches. And the multimedia subsystem that just landed from another planet. That's completely different. That was bolted on after the fact. Because remember, back in the day, OS2 1.0 and 2.0 didn't have multimedia. Did 2.0, Alex, did 2.0 come with multimedia?
That was before my time, I'm not sure.
Warp came with multimedia. I think 2.1 had multimedia.
It has some support, I remember, from installing.
I don't remember the
machines,
multimedia installer.
But multimedia installer, no.
I think that was a Warp thing, I thought.
There was a lot of it that changed with Warp, because there were a bunch of 32-bit components that came in, but a lot of that stuff was just bolted on after the fact. And so it didn't really, if you're going through a Warp 4 install, you can see that you get to a different part of the install, and oh look, the progress meter is now completely different looking than it was for the last bit that I was installing. That's just what they did. Our approach is to give a more consistent user interface to the installer, and that, of course, that's all Alex. I mean, he's the guy.
Good job.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
now they know who to call when.
Now, exactly.
My email is going to
All the
explode.
people who did this are dead now.
You know, sadly, a good portion of the people who were at IBM at the time have passed. You know, by the time ArcaOS came around, they had retired, and now they've generally passed.
Like Chuck, you know.
Yeah.
So you're like an archaeologist. You are discovering things.
Sometimes you are, and there's no one from whom you can get first-hand information anymore.
But fortunately, they documented everything.
If you know where to look, and if the documentation still exists.
And isn't referring to stuff that was like five versions old.
Yeah, that's the real problem, is finding documentation that is contemporary with the software version that is in use.
Does IBM offer, like, for any large customers, any more support for OS2, or is that totally extinct?
Our experience has been that they have, if you're a large enterprise customer and you have a support contract with IBM for OS2, they will renew your support contract. If you're an enterprise customer that has not had a support contract, you can't get a support contract. If you have renewed your support contract, it remains questionable whether the engineers assigned to your entity have any OS2 experience whatsoever.
Wow.
That's when we get the call.
Okay.
And we do. I mean, it happens. We have a couple Fortune 500 companies that contact us. So, yeah, it's difficult. Even the large third-party IT support outfits that were doing a lot of support for OS2 back in the day, that started by doing OS2 support back in the day, don't have the talent on tap to do it. Just a sign of the times.
So you're it?
We're kind of the last bastion on the planet of OS2 talent. It's a nice niche to be in. The problem that we find is that the OS2 system at a large company is sort of a black box, and it's been in the closet and running for 20, 25 years, and no one thinks about it. And all of those people who set it up are long gone. They've left the company, they've retired, they've gone to Florida. And all of a sudden, the machine dies. The power supply dies. And then, what happened to drive Q? Then you find out that drive Q wasn't just drive Q. Drive Q was running 15 different mission critical applications on this 2000 era server box, parts for which are almost impossible to find. And so then hopefully we get the call, and then it's a matter of migrating that to a modern box and running ArcaOS.
Has the New York transit system ever approached ArcaOS? I know that they talked about migrating away from OS2.
New York Transit is a client of Neil's. I don't know what their current status is. I think that they were switching over from OS2 to something, perhaps from Redmond.
I believe the MetroCard thing still relies on it in the turnstiles. I think the turnstiles ran DOS. The network in the stations ran OS2 to talk to a mainframe. But when it switched to Omni, the new system, I think that probably will disappear. So.
Well, Neil's the guy.
But that takes a while in New York. I'm not giving up my MetroCard.
MetroCard, I still have tokens.
I have a large balance on it, and they're going to retire the system that I used to replenish it, because I had a job and they would put a few $100 every month on it.
Huh.
So they want to give me an Omni card, and I said, well, how do I get the balance over? And they say, you can't do that. So
Yep.
So it's use it or lose it?
you need to have a debit card for one of those transit accounts. I don't have a job anymore, so I don't have one.
So you're spending your days these days just
I
riding the
just ride the
subway?
subway a lot.
Just using it up, just use it before you lose it. Gives a whole new, gives a whole new meaning to the phrase riding the rails.
There's a song about this in Boston.
Yeah.
Charlie on the MTA. They had an exit fee. He didn't have the coin. So he just rides around and his wife throws him a sandwich. He goes through
There
the
you
station.
go. There you
It's called
go.
a Charlie card. In fact, the card now is called a Charlie card after the song.
That's funny. That's funny. Anything online? Anything else?
There is a question, but I think that is good for tomorrow for your session.
Okay.
That it says that ArcaOS needs to return to their media as it was the launch of ArcaOS 5.0. To do more media, I think the question is to be on the media, to be on the news.
Okay.
But
Okay.
let's don't say anything. Let's.
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's an interesting twist in the ArcaOS roadmap session this year. I'm going to talk in some detail about the line between what ArcaNoe does and what ArcaNoe would hope that third parties do. Remember, back in the day, IBM used to talk a lot about ISVs, independent software vendors, and that they would provide, IBM would provide a basic thing, and then it was their hope that the ISVs would come up with better ideas and build on that and develop their own products. So keep that in the back of your minds for tomorrow, because I'll have some more to say about that. So that's a good add-on to that part of the discussion.
Okay.
Anything else for right now?
Can I go upstairs and get my stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
Let's have a break.
yeah. Let's have a break. Let's have a break.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
plug
you.
into your thing while you're here?
Yeah, whatever you
I have
want.
a thing with a lot of plugs in it.
Plug these in after, or
No, these don't. Just
That's
hold it in.
That's.
once you turn off.